Well, hello, welcome, Power Partners. This is our informational playground, Starstyle. Be the star you are, coming to the airwaves under the auspices of Be the Star You Are charity. I am your host, Cynthia Brian, and we are broadcasting on Voice America Media. This is the Empowerment Channel. The miracle moment for today is from a quote that I wrote. And it is brought to you, of course, by Be the Star You Are. You can go to bethestaryouare.org, which is the charity that brings you this. And it is to be a leader, you must be a reader. And why I do that is because we're going to talk about the importance of reading and literacy today. Because in today's digital world, some people question whether books are still relevant, yet books remain such a valuable part of our lives. I mean, they entertain, they educate, they inspire, they help us see the world from new perspectives. They teach our children, about the gifts of reading, and they build vocabulary and critical thinking, which are necessary for success. So, because it's summer, it's the opportune time to dive into a new book. That's segment one. In segment two, we'll be talking about multi-generational living because the number of U.S. households with two or more generations living under one roof has quadrupled, according to the Pew Research Center, in the last few years. The latest census indicates that 7.2% of Americans live with three or more generations in one home. So, what are the reasons behind this trend? What are the benefits? And what are the complexities? Well, the ability to read is one of the most important and rewarding skills that a person can achieve. Since I grew up on a farm in a very rural area that didn't offer any preschools or kindergarten or activities for young children other than working on the farms or ranches, I didn't learn to read until I was 7 years old in first grade. But from my first understanding of letters and numbers, I was really hooked. I craved books and I was delighted when I received one for birthdays and holidays. And then once I learned to read, I took it upon myself to teach my four young siblings the gift of literacy. It was important to me that everything I learned, I helped them with. And I remember just as a 7-year-old starting something called the Junior Girl Scouts. I didn't really know what it was, but what it was for us, what I started, it was just my siblings and then the kids that worked, the children of our foreman on the ranch and the workers on our ranch, any of the children, I would lead them on hikes and teach them about the flowers and the trees and the different fauna. And then I would teach them to read. So building our vocabulary and critical thinking are necessary skills for success. Being able to read is necessary for just the very simple things in life. You got to read signs, letters, invoices, menus, just about everything. And when we read, we actually increase our self esteem, we improve our concentration, we strengthen our memory, we improve writing skills, and we enrich our imagination. So, with books, we can travel to distant lands, we can escape the daily grind, and we can comprehend complex concepts. But summer is really the opportune time to get a new book and just dive right in. And if you want to get children interested in reading, you want to provide books on topics in which they are interested. It doesn't matter if the stories are about tractors or stars or animals. If a child is enthralled with the words and the pictures, hearts will be opened and minds will be expanded in every chapter. Now, I still own every book from my childhood. They were really that precious to me. And then I passed them on to my children, and they enjoyed them as much as I did. And my love of reading and desire to increase literacy for everyone was really the motivation to create Be the Star You Are 501c3 charity, which is a literacy charity. And you can check out book reviews that our volunteers do if you go to bethestaryouare.org and then click on book reviews. And there are ideas for lots of interesting books for all ages, written by kids who have read them and have given honest reviews. Now, I with this year being our 250th birthday of the United States, I really suggest reading or rereading the Gettysburg Address. I mean, these aren't books, but these are important things to read. The Declaration of Independence and even the Articles of the Constitution. These documents will help you understand this wonderful experiment that we call the United States of America. And just a reminder that we are all immigrants here seeking life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in this beautiful country. And unless that you are a Native American, or if you're from Canada, a First Nation, we are the children of immigrants. So who could have predicted that a child who didn't read until age 7 would become an author of 12 books and founder of a literacy charity? This is why I like to say read, lead, and succeed. So to check out any of my 12 books, visit cynthiabrian.com. You can buy them right there under the Starstyle store, just with one click. And you get a lot of different freebies and you get autographed copies, and you will always get a first edition, a copy. And a lot of the books have gone into many other editions. So if you're a person that likes first editions, just check those out. That's cynthiabrian.com. Now, Karen Kitchell, who is our kindness coordinator at Be the Star You Are, she wrote this a little special thing about why books are special. And I think it's important to read it to you. In today's digital world, some people question whether books are still relevant. Yet books remain a valuable part of our lives. They entertain, they educate, they inspire, and they help us to see the world from new perspectives. And here are a few reasons that she thinks books are special. First, books help us escape from reality and explore different worlds. We all need a break from reality every once in a while, and reading can take us to places that we've never been and introduce us to new ideas. They're also a great way to relax. As an aside, I love when I have a free hour, I love just to sit in bed or to lounge in my hammock and read a book. I find it very relaxing and I like to escape to another land, or sometimes it's a self-help book and I get a lot of ideas for just how to be a better person. Next, she says, we can learn almost anything from a book. They can transport us to different countries, cultures, and time periods, all without leaving home. Books help us better understand the world and the people in it. And then there's inspiration that comes from books. They're like a best friend. A well-written book has the ability to inspire us to become a better person and to achieve our goals. We can learn from some of the greatest minds in history. And all ages have an opportunity to be entertained. I mean, even babies will smile when given a touch and see book, and a few gifts can spark a child's imagination and love of learning, quite like a good book. And it's interesting when for babies, I used to have, and I still do have, these books that you can even take in the bathtub, that were picture books and they would squeak or whatever, and babies just loved them. Books promote creativity and imagination. When you're reading a book, you can often imagine what the characters look like, what their voices sound like, and where the story is taking place. And this can lead to some very creative ideas. So enjoy reading good books this summer. And then one of our teen volunteers, Gowrie, she wanted to write about some of the books that she really likes. So I'm going to share those with you here because she says that there's something special about reading in the summer. Maybe it's the extra free time or the way a good book just seems to make a hot afternoon pass more quickly. Whatever the reason, summer has always felt like the season for stories. And one of the best parts about reading is that there is a book for every age. If you're younger, what she recommends is Rainbow Magic Series. It's a full magical adventure with fairies and friendships. And for preteens, she loves Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and she likes Dork Diaries or Kid YouTuber. These are all great choices. They're packed with the funny and, of course, sometimes embarrassing moments of growing up. Then, as you get older, the options seem to grow along with you. If you're a teenager or older, you can read just about anything that catches your interest. Summer is a great time to explore different genres because you never know what you might end up loving. If you like poetry, she recommends Les Fleurs de Mel. It's by Baudelaire. It's a collection that reflects on beauty and human nature. She also likes the Penguin Book of Women's Poets, which brings together powerful voices from different centuries and experiences. Now, if you are looking for horror or mystery page turners, her recommendation is Never Lie by Frida McFadden, a thriller filled with twists and hidden secrets, or Strange Houses by Uketso, an eerie mystery centered around unsettling homes and strange disappearances. And of course, shorter reads are always good, and that can make you more well versed in today's political climate. Animal Farm by George Orwell, which most of us had to read in school, and I still think it is just so prescient. It is a great read and very, very apropos for what's happening in our world today. It's a political fable about power and corruption. And of course, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald is a novel that explores wealth, ambition, and the illusion of the American dream. And of course, people also like sometimes to have a good cry. And if that's what you'd like, her recommendation is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Nig, which is a heartbreaking story about family, identity, and loss. And no matter what you choose, reading is one of the few things that allows us to step into someone else's world for just a little while. So this summer, consider picking up something new, revisiting an old favorite, or supporting your favorite library. And I get books from the library all the time. The library is such a great resource. And also during summer, it's a nice, cool place to go. So if you're in a hot location, you might want to go to the library. I also want to say that Be the Star You Are has an Amazon bookstore. So if you go to Amazon, if you check out the Amazon, you could check out Be the Star You Are. We have maybe a couple hundred books, and most of them are from people who have been guests on any of our radio shows. They're all books that have been read by our people. And I think that, we try to price them at the least expensive price. So that's on Amazon. Also, if you just want to make a donation to Be the Star You Are, we have a very cool book package of, I think it's 7 books at bethestaryouare.org, and it's /book -gift. You'll see it. It just says, it's like a book package. So definitely, check that out. And if you're just wondering again what Be the Star You Are is all about, Be the Star You Are is an all-volunteer organization. It operates only through contributions, in-kind donations, and proceeds from any fundraising events. Be the Star You Are does not receive any state or federal funding. It's solely dependent on contributions from the community and any corporations that want to donate. And it has been consistently honored as a top nonprofit by GuideStar and Great Nonprofits. And GuideStar is now Candide. And in addition, it supports all ethnicities. Be the Star has no religious or political agenda or affiliation. And we're proud to have been serving the community, the country, counties, and the world since 1999. So you can donate to Be the Star You Are to keep this show on the air, as well as just pick up books, bethestaryouare.org. So do check it out because I think there's a lot of information there. And again, we want you to read, lead, and succeed. I'm Cynthia Brian. You're listening to Starstyle, Be the Star You Are. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Hang in there. How important is interpersonal communication? A national survey of sales professionals answers the question as number one in importance. Interpersonal communication received 95%, self-motivation 94, conflict resolution 90, selling expertise 86, presentation skills 79. So giving an excellent presentation is no longer sufficient in just gaining a competitive edge. You need to connect with people. You need to be people focused, and you will be able to sell more and be more. So be personable, connect, and communicate. Remember, you're the star of your own performance. Turn your passions into profits. I'm Cynthia Brian with another business bite from Starstyle. For more information, visit cynthiabrian.com. That's Cynthia Brian, Brian with an I.com. Well, we are back, and I hope that you are still with us. I thank you so much for hanging in there. This is Starstyle, Be the Star You Are. I am Cynthia Brian. And in this segment, we want to talk about the complexities of multi-generational living. You probably know people. You might even be in a family where there are several generations, maybe your parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles. Multi-generational living arrangements are just becoming increasingly more common. And over the past 50 years, the number of U.S. households with at least two generations under one roof has nearly quadrupled, according to a recent report by the Pew Research Center. And what's more, the latest census data shows that 7.2% of Americans live with three or more generations in one home. Now, the reasons behind the shift are recognizable. Of course, everything's more expensive these days, and you graduate from high school or college and you find it really hard to get a job or get into the workforce, and that cost of living just keeps going up. And at the same time, older adults might need additional care, and they may find it easier to live with their families, their children, their grandchildren, who can share the household duties and maybe sometimes even the expenses. Now, as wonderful as it can be for families to live under one roof, it can also be really tricky to navigate. There are some things you can do to help minimize the stress and maximize the gains of a multi-generational household. You have to establish some rules, and of course, we have to respect boundaries, because with multi-generational living, you are sandwiched between two very different versions of adulthood. For example, your son might be wanting to establish independence while your aging father might be feeling that he is slipping away. So the key to balancing the emotion is to develop a rhythm that works for everyone. And to avoid feeling like you're running a boarding house, you got to establish some household rules that are fair and meaningful and respectful. So rather than arguing about tasks or assigning tasks, what can happen is you can invite family members to take ownership of responsibilities that align with their daily routines, their interests, and even their physical abilities. It's just as important to discuss boundaries and expectations up front. For example, how often do you want to eat dinner together? Who's going to go and buy the groceries? Do you want advance notice when guests are going to visit? Adult children and aging parents might crave more autonomy. So coming to an agreement early is really better, because that can help prevent any misunderstandings and that will help you settle into, a good rhythm and a new dynamic. So there's also the idea of finances. You have to determine the level of financial support. So living at home can be a really good place for young adults who are looking for employment, and they're trying to save money, before they get a place of their own. But it can also slow down their progress towards independence. So to help ensure that, your son or your daughter keeps moving forward, you have to set expectations early. So if somebody wants to move back home, you can have a couple of stipulations. Maybe they're going to pay rent, or they're going to contribute to a retirement savings for themselves. That could allow the person to remain financially accountable and then learn to prioritize their own future, as well as avoid any sense of entitlement or even resentment. Because sometimes when somebody is taking care of all the expenses, as much as you appreciate it, and sometimes you just expect it, there also can start a little resentment because you're not actually doing enough to, do your part. You want to share some financial knowledge, like create a weekly or monthly budget together, talk openly about spending habits and managing debt, and involvement in monthly bill paying. Now, if you have, a mother-in-law or father-in-law, you have to consider their current financial situations as well as their future needs. Have they planned for long-term care? In case if they're living with you now and you can't continue taking care of them. Because research anticipates that today's seniors are going to require an average of 3 to 5 years of long-term services and support during their lifetime. So it really is important to understand and get ahead of those costs if you have older adults or grandparents or aunts and uncles living with you. And according to the research that I have done, long-term care is very expensive. Right now, it's running around $10,000 a month. So think about that. If you have 3 to 5 years at $10,000 a month, that really is a lot. And is that something that you can handle? You got to talk about all these things. And if you need to help with those finances, how much are you going to be able to help? So get it all up front. And then, even happy family arrangements benefit from an exit plan, because without one, a temporary situation can quickly and quietly become permanent. And then it can delay your own next chapter. I mean, first of all, you got to make sure that you are happy with the living arrangement the way it is. Now, I mean, maybe you are the teen, the young adult, or the grandparent that is living with somebody else, but how much how long do you want to stay? Do you want to keep it like this? Um, how much runway do you want to give a young person who has just come home from college and has moved back in, or maybe somebody has had a death in the family or divorce and has moved back in? How long is that going to be? Is it forever? Is it for a year? Put some timelines on it. And if you want to remain at home and everybody's okay with it, what role will you or that other person play? Now, if assisted living is an eventual possibility, you want to make sure to discuss those options while the person that could need it is still healthy. And speaking of long-term care, for those people, everybody should probably have a long-term care plan. And when you're young, you never think about it. You don't think you're going to need it. But the older you get, the more expensive these plans become. So you want to look into it if you're around, I don't know, I guess maybe around 50 or so, you can start creating some kind of a long-term insurance. And always make sure that everyone has an advanced care directive and power of attorney, because we never know when an accident or a life altering event can happen, and somebody has to be able to have the advanced care directives, and they have to know what to do. And then finally, revisit your plan, because the most important aspect of multi-generational living is that everyone loves it, everyone thrives, and everyone is, on the same page. So consider setting a predetermined time, perhaps yearly, to reassess your situation and to adjust what isn't working without letting any resentments build. Because family dynamics, if they get strained, it's really hard, and it's vital to address the friction honestly and early, and um, with, again, respect and care. But that will ensure that you'll have great expectations, and that everything can be resolved before they cause any lasting harm to any of your important relationships. But I know several families who are in multi-generational households, and it's working out just great, especially when there is a person who needs maybe extra care, who might have dementia, and then there's somebody there, who is helping with the caregiving, as well as having a job and then having a place to stay. So whatever your situation is, just make sure to check it out. But just know it can be a blessing, but it can be a curse if you don't take care of it and set the rules in advance. Well, that is the show of Starstyle for today. Thank you for staying tuned to Starstyle, Be the Star You Are. We have new live shows every Wednesday, and you can change your life. You can make your dreams come true. For more information about me, Cynthia Brian, or my company, Starstyle Productions, visit cynthiabrian.com. That's where you'll also find any of my books and garden advice and everything else that you might need. If you're interested in getting involved with Be the Star You Are charity, or making a donation, or becoming a volunteer, we're always looking for new volunteers. Visit bethestaryouare.org. My aim is always to encourage, inspire, inform, amuse, and motivate. See beyond your physical being. Know you are already the star you dreamed of becoming. Cherish the past, dream of the future, and celebrate today and every moment of your life. And of course, read a book this week. Go to the library, pick up a good book. It is just so informative. And, or get a book that is just going to be a great summer read that'll transport you to someplace else. And until next week, when we celebrate once again, remember that love always wins, kindness always prevails, and smiles will keep you happy. I am Cynthia Brian for Starstyle. I'm thanking you and encouraging you to be kind, be inclusive, tell the truth, live with integrity, embrace cultures, love unconditionally, encourage others, be generous, read, lead, succeed, communicate, collaborate, innovate, and most of all, be your unapologetically authentic self, because everyone counts. Go out into the world and be the star you are. You already are one. Just shine it up and make it a fantastic week. Thanks for joining me.